Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our final, well, not final. Maybe I wish it was so. No, our 100th episode of a new thing. Gosh, it's early. Sorry about that. But I am excited to talk about because this is like one of those topics that I love talking about, and because it's the 100th episode, uh, gotta talk about it, right? Because if there's any episode where I get to just choose whatever I want, this has to be the one where I do that. And we're going to talk about dying well. And there's a lot of things you can do to die well, but this is really something that every Christian should desire to do. In fact, a book that I'm going to read from in a little bit for you guys is a pastoral book. Giving advice to pastors on how to do things. And one of the things the author says is that part of a pastor's job is to help people die well, and that's not an original thought. I've heard that in other places, and I completely agree. Right, that is like kind of our job. A big part of it, actually, I think, is to help people, especially in our time and place, face the reality of death, because often people don't want to, and that leads to a lot of miscalculations and putting importance on things that maybe don't matter as much as they should, and all sorts of things like that, right? But to start us off, I thought I'd start with something a little bit more fun than that, right? And so we're gonna look at this. This is I'm sure you know this quote, right? It's been like endlessly used in Hollywood. Ave Imperator Morituri Salutant, which is "Hail Emperor, those who are about to die salute you." Right? This is the Wikipedia page. And I actually, to be honest, I'm a classics guy. I love uh, Greco-Roman history and things like that. I had no idea that this was an actual saying. I thought this was completely made up by Hollywood. Um, but it is, right? So this is something that at least one group of forced combatants said to an emperor. It's actually a really funny story. It comes from Suetonius. His Latin is down here, but like basically what is happening is Suetonius is saying that the emperor Claudius was having like a mock sea battle, right? So like what you would do, they would bring these gladiators or these people who are going to fight and die for everyone's amusement. They would bring them out to this lake, and they have ships, and they're going to be on the ships, and they're going to fight each other. It's going to be murder each other in front of everyone. It's going to be great, right? That's what they thought. It's a pretty funny story, actually, right? So he says, even when he, Claudius, was on the point of letting out the water from Lake Fucinus, he gave a sham sea fight first. But when the combatants cried out, "Hail Emperor, they who are about to die salute thee," he replied, "Or not." And after that, all of them refused to fight, maintaining they had been pardoned because they're all criminals, right? So I guess like he was probably trying to be cheeky, right? With them being like, "Oh, we're gonna die," and then be like, or not, and then they're all like, "Oh, did he just get us out of this? We don't have to kill each other now." And so they don't fight, and then apparently he goes down, he makes them fight, and all that type of stuff. But I thought that was a pretty funny story, and then of course it came with this awesome image on Wikipedia. Look at that, man! We don't make art like this anymore, even though that's not what the Coliseum looked like. That's way too big. Coliseum was about half the size of a modern football stadium, but with the same amount of seating capacity because no one actually sat; they all stood. So you get a lot of people in there, but it's not that big. Anyway, really cool. We don't make stuff like that anymore. Now it's all AI slop. That's besides the point, right? Like this image that I'm using, right? These people are about to fight and die, and they're accepting that fact. Okay, I'm not saying this gladiator fights were a good thing. They weren't. You can see all the dead people around them, right? The dead people being dragged off of the thing. Like this really, I mean, don't look too deeply into this metaphor because it's really I'm just focused down here. But really this is like a symbol for life, right? You enter into the Colosseum knowing that there is a high probability that you are going to die, right? And you have to accept that fact, and that's probably why it became a trend, or at least maybe a trend. We actually don't know if they actually said this all the time because this is our only mention of it. Um, but this is the type of attitude we have to have as Christians when it comes to looking at death. We have to be able to go, okay, you know, I can die. That seems like something really simple to say, but how many people think that they will die early? You know, Bailey was telling me last night that some kids were racing on the Garden State Parkway and got into a car accident, and one of them died. Right, one of them tried to flee the country, something like that, near Metuchen on the Garden State Parkway, and you know, they probably didn't think they were going to die at 19 or 20 or whatever he was, right? But it happens all the time. Yeah, that's one of the things as a pastor I constantly feel like I need to tell people is, you know, I've done funerals for people here at the church of various ages. I've done random funerals for people. People think that they're owed, you know, 85, 90 years of life. And that's when everyone actually dies, right? If you just keep your head up and don't do something stupid, you won't die before that. And that's not true at all, right? There's tragedy all the time with various diagnoses and sicknesses and just random facts, you know. Um, and so I just think it's you know, this is part of being a Christian is dying well. You know, knowing it can happen any moment, knowing what's most important because of that fact, and then when you are actually facing death, to do so with the knowledge of who God is and who Christ is. And I actually have a wonderful passage for this, right? Um, Psalm 90. Of course, there's so many places you can go, but I actually love Psalm 90 for this because it's very clear about what man is and who God is. So this is a prayer of Moses, the man of God. And I'm just going to read the whole thing. I want to say, what is this? 17 verses. Yeah. So it's not super long, right? So this is what it says. It says, Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever you had formed the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. You return man to dust and say, Return, O children of man, for 1,000 years in your sight are but as yesterday when it is past, or as a watch in the night. You sweep them away as with the flood. They are like a dream, like grass that is renewed in the morning. In the morning it flourishes and is renewed. In the evening it fades and withers. For we are brought to an end by your anger. By your wrath we are dismayed. You have set our iniquities before you, our secret sins in the light of your presence. For all our days pass away under your wrath. We begin our years to an end like a sigh. The years of our life are 70, or even by reason of strength 80, yet their span is but toil and trouble. They are soon gone, and we fly away. Who considers the power of your anger and your wrath according to the fear of you? So teach us to number our days, so that we may get a heart of wisdom. Return, O Lord, how long? Have pity on your servants. Satisfy us in the morning with your steadfast love, that we may rejoice and be glad all our days. Make us glad for as many days as you have afflicted us, and for as many years as we have seen evil. Let your work be shown to your servants, and your glorious power to their children. Let the favor of the Lord our God be upon us, and establish the work of our hands upon us. Yes, establish the work of our hands. So I love this, right? And you can see here that this really is a psalm about accepting and facing death, right? You can see he talks about how long, you know, he says 70, 80 years if we're lucky. About the fact that, you know, days wash away, our lives wash away, that, you know, in what is in God's time very quickly, right? And that we go from the dust to the dust, right? There's yesterday when it is past, or as a watch in the night in the face of God. And then he says, you know, we're in this sinful world, right? And we face that sin all the time, right? We face severity and difficulty. I think this is maybe where they get that famous gospel song "Fly Away," you know, from. I don't know, but you know, they're talking about when we die, we fly away, right? That might be where they get this language from. And so, what is the ultimate upshot of this, right? What does what is Moses here, the author of the psalm, ask for for a gift from God, right? What is it? Is it, oh, I want to live forever? Is it oh, like, never help me experience sickness or whatever, right? Well, the first thing he asks for is to teach us to number our days so that we may get a heart of wisdom, right? So at the heart of wisdom, at the heart of knowing what is right and wrong, is the idea of knowing that we are going to die, right? That is that we can number our days. It's not saying, oh, teach us how to make a calendar, right? That's not what it's saying, right? It's saying, oh, to know that my days are numbered. That's the actual upshot of what he wants. He wants God to be like, here, here's the wisdom of knowing that you're going to die. And then he calls on the Lord to return, right? And this is where we as Christians can see the good news here, right? And this is where we have this vision, future vision of goodness, and why we can actually have a very bittersweet view of death, right? Because we understand the sadness of it. We understand that the person is gone, that will be gone, but that Jesus has defeated the grave, right? And that he calls us into eternal life with him. Let the favor of the Lord our God be upon us. Establish the work of our hands. Yes, establish the work of our hands, right? Give us as many days as you've afflicted us. Give us years of blessing for that. You know, it's seen in the ultimate sacrifice in bringing into the kingdom of Jesus. And so we are able to number our days and have a positive view of death, which is just something that is not going on in our culture today. It just isn't. And so I want to just bring us this last part, just so we can bring together this wisdom once more, right? This is from the book I was talking about, Funerals to Care of Souls. You can see it's here. He says that we have to help people prepare to die. He extends this to families too, helping families accept that people are going to die. Difficult thing to do, but important, right? And this is certainly a book for pastors, but also this is kind of for all of us. Like, we need to be honest with the people in our lives and with ourselves, right, about this. And then in this next chapter, I just want to compare and contrast. We're going to do a little bit more classical work here. It starts with Memento Mori. It's a Latin phrase that says, remember, you will die. And he talks about Marcus Aurelius, and he quotes Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, which is a book of his where he, writes about all sorts of things. He was an emperor, but he was also a philosopher, Stoic philosopher. And so I like this quote which he has. He says, do not act as if you had 10,000 years to throw away. Death stands at your elbow. Be good for something while you live, and it is in your power. And he adds, on this much the Christian faith and Stoic philosophy agree. Death is inevitable and ought to impinge upon how we live this life, intrude or have an effect on people. Usually it's talked about negatively, right? And down here he says, preachers and pastors have a duty to their congregations to teach them about death and to hold before them with regularity that they will die. So that's what I'm doing today, right? You will die. That's my big takeaway. I know it's a glorious thing, but this is the 100th episode, and what is this if not just a way for me to stroke my own ego, right? So let me tell you, you will die. I will die. Everyone in the church will die at some point. This is the reality of life. It could be tomorrow. It could be decades. But people will die. And that is something that we have to accept. It doesn't mean that we just say life doesn't matter, or that we can't mourn when people die. Not what I'm saying. But what we have to acknowledge is that we will die and others will die in a variety of ways. And we have to accept that and know that that's wisdom, right? That we have that ability to say, yes, I'm going to die one day, and so what does that have about my life? What does that affect? Am I going to, what does that mean for the ways I'm going to carry myself with my friends, with my family, with the church, right? What am I going to spend my time doing? Think about the parables of Jesus when he talks about counting the cost or things like that, right? He says, or he's telling you how to build a house, right? He says, don't build it on sand, but build it on the solid rock. And so all these things, right? All these things come together to remind us that we are going to die, and that we have to use this life in a way that honors God, and brings His good news to people. Because it is then when we finally do die that we enter into the kingdom of God, and God will say, "Well done, good and faithful servant." Right? That's what we want to hear, and that can really only happen in the best way with acknowledging the fact that you're going to die. So if you haven't done that, or you're scared to do it, today is the day. Hear the good news, right? Jesus Christ died and is risen again, and He calls you into eternal life with Him, right? Those who believe in these words, He says in the Gospel of John, right, will never die. Do you believe this? He says to Mary, right? I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the resurrection and the life, right? All these things we can have hope and faith in. So turn to Him and remember, salute Him and remember that you're going to die. All right? All right, that's what I wanted to talk about today. I hope you guys have a wonderful Thursday after that cheery message. And it is a cheery message, even if you might not think so. At some point, spiritually, you'll be like, yeah, that was great. All right, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you on Sunday. Peace out.